You're lying in bed, the lights are off, you're finally trying to sleep, and then it starts. You're back in an argument from 3 days ago, except this time you have the perfect line. The one that ends it. You say it, slow and calm, and you watch their face fall. You win. Clean. Then the channel changes. Now someone you like is finally saying the exact thing you've been waiting to hear. Now you're standing in front of a room full of people who used to ignore you, and every single one of them is listening. Now you're the calm one in an emergency that is never going to happen, pulling your best friend out of a burning car. And here's the part you don't tell anyone. Somewhere in there, your lips actually moved. You whispered half a sentence out loud, in the dark, to a person who isn't in the room. You're not crazy. You're not wasting your life. And you are not the only one who does this. Not even close. But there is something happening inside your head that almost nobody ever gets explained to them. Your brain is running a specific program. That program has a name, and what it is actually for is stranger and a lot kinder than you just can't switch off. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly why your mind keeps building these little movies, why you're always the hero of them, and how to read them instead of drowning in them. Let's start with what you've probably already decided about yourself. You've likely filed this under escapism, a bad habit, proof that you'd rather hide in a fantasy than deal with your actual life. Maybe someone even told you, kindly, to stop living in your head. That is the obvious answer. It's also wrong, because hiding is not the kind of thing a brain builds a whole system to do, and this, it turns out, is a whole system, built very much on purpose. Here's the first strange thing. For a long time, scientists assumed the resting brain was basically switched off. You finish a task, the lights go down, not much happening in there. Then in 2001, a neuroscientist named Marcus Rachel at Washington University noticed the exact opposite. The moment you stop paying attention to the outside world, a whole network of your brain lights up. He called it the default mode network, the setting your brain drops into by default the instant nothing out there needs you. Picture a small theater tucked behind a shop. All day, the front of the shop deals with customers, traffic, your inbox, where you left your keys. The second that work goes quiet, in bed, in the shower, on a long, dull bus ride, the theater in the back switches on the projector. It was waiting the whole time. So the fake scenarios are not a glitch in the machine. They are the machine, doing the exact thing it was built to do. But that just moves the question, doesn't it? Why would a brain build a private theater in the first place? What is the point of a movie that nobody else can ever see? Here's where it gets genuinely surprising. In 2007, two psychologists, Daniel Gilbert at Harvard and Timothy Wilson, published a paper in the journal Science about something they named prospection. The idea is simple and a little unnerving. A huge amount of what your brain does all day is simulate the future so it can feel it before it actually arrives. You don't just think about tomorrow's meeting, you run it. You feel a flicker of the nerves, test a couple of opening lines, watch a few ways it could go. That argument you keep winning in bed is not you being petty. It's a rehearsal. Your brain is a flight simulator, and it's letting you crash the plane 100 times in a place where crashing is free. And watch how neatly it works. There's a coworker who might pick apart your project tomorrow. So tonight your brain runs the scene, tries 3 different answers, and keeps the one that doesn't make your voice shake. There's a hard thing you have to tell your parents. So you rehearse the first sentence 40 times on the drive over. Then the real moment comes, and you're just slightly readier than you have any right to be. You practiced. You just did it in the dark with your eyes closed. Now notice something about these movies. You almost always win them. You're never the one who freezes at the concert. You're never the coward in the emergency. You're never the one who gets left standing there with nothing to say. And that is not an accident because of a second trick your brain is playing. When you imagine a reward, your brain hands you a small, real taste of the good feeling that would come with it. A genuine little hit of pleasure for a win that hasn't happened and may never happen. The simulator is sweetened on purpose, so you'll keep coming back to it. That's why the hero fantasy is so easy to slip into and so hard to climb out of. The victory is free, it's instant, and it feels like the real thing for just long enough. Real wins are expensive. Imaginary ones are on the house. Hold on to that, because in a minute it turns out to matter a lot. So the future scenarios make sense. But that still doesn't explain the other kind. The arguments from 3 days ago, the conversation from last year. You cannot rehearse something that has already happened, so why does your brain keep dragging you back into it? Because of a woman with a notebook in a Berlin cafe almost 100 years ago. In the 1920s, a psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik noticed that waiters could hold a huge, complicated order perfectly in their heads, right up until the moment the bill was paid. The second the meal was settled, the whole order simply evaporated from memory. What she found became known as the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain clamps down hard on unfinished things and quietly lets finished ones float away. An argument where you thought of the perfect reply 3 hours too late is an unpaid bill. A goodbye that came out wrong is an open tab. A text you never answered. A fight that just trailed off. Someone who left before you got to say the real thing. Your mind keeps every one of those tabs running in the background. And every night, it tries to close them, the only way it can, by writing the ending you never actually got. That's the quiet truth underneath the replays. You are not stuck in the past. You are trying to finish it. And there's one kind of replay that gives this away completely. Be honest, you've run this one. The scenario where the people who overlooked you finally realize what they lost. The ex who's suddenly sorry. The old friends who left you out, watching you walk in, successful and calm. Sometimes it's darker, a version where you're gone, and everyone who ignored you is standing there wishing they'd been kinder. Those aren't evil little fantasies. They're the loudest open tabs you've got. Every one of them is your brain trying to settle a debt that reality left unpaid. The moment you didn't feel chosen, or seen, or valued. The mind isn't plotting revenge. It's asking for an apology it never received, which quietly tells you something you might not want to hear yet, and we'll come back to it. Now here's the part almost nobody talks about. There's a researcher named James Honeycutt at Louisiana State University who spent his whole career studying one very specific thing. The conversations we have with people who aren't there. He called them imagined interactions. And when he actually sat down and measured them, he found they are not a symptom of anything being wrong with you. They do real work. They let you rehearse the hard talk before you have it. They help you figure out what you actually feel. They even keep the people you love present in your mind when they're far away or gone. Think about the last time someone you loved moved away and you caught yourself telling them about your day in your head, out of pure habit. That wasn't you malfunctioning. That was your mind keeping their chair warm. And here's the flattering part. And it is genuinely backed by the research, not a compliment I'm inventing. The people who run these imagined conversations the most tend to be more emotionally tuned in, not less. You are not spacing out. You're running a private gym for your feelings that most people never once set foot in. The same equipment a novelist uses to build a living character out of nothing, you're aiming at your own ordinary Tuesday. So if this is rehearsal and closure and a kind of emotional gym, then why does it ever tip over into something that feels like a problem? Here's the turn. For most people, most of the time, the theater is a tool. You go in, you get something, you come back out. But remember that free, sweetened little reward, the one your brain hands you for an imaginary win? A simulator that feels this good has a trap folded right into it. In 2002, a clinical psychologist named Eli Sommer at the University of Haifa gave that trap a name, maladaptive daydreaming. He described people whose inner world had grown so vivid and so rewarding that it started to swallow the real one. Hours a day, given away on purpose, because the movie was simply better than the room they were sitting in. So look at where the line really is. It was never whether you imagine fake scenarios. Everybody watching this does. The line is whether the theater is a place you visit or a place you've quietly moved into. A rehearsal turns you back toward real life. A retreat turns you away from it. Same theater, opposite direction. And that is exactly what lets you read your own movies. So before the last piece, do one small thing. Think about the very last fake scenario you ran. Not the plot, the feeling. Who was in the room with you? And what were they finally giving you that nobody in your real life is? because that is the secret use of the whole thing. Your fake scenarios are not random noise. They are a map of what you're missing. The argument you keep winning is a boundary you have never actually set out loud. The person who finally chooses you is a kind of closeness you're not getting yet. The crowd that finally goes quiet and listens is a corner of your life where you feel completely unseen. And that fantasy of everyone being sorry, that's the plainest one of all. It's a need to be valued, sitting unmet so long that your brain started paying the bill itself. In the dark. On credit. The daydream was never the problem to fix. It's the arrow, pointing straight at the problem. So you don't have to shut the theater down. You couldn't anyway. It was installed at the factory. What you can do is start walking out with the map instead of moving in. The next time you catch yourself winning that same argument for the 10th night in a row, stop and ask the quiet question underneath it. What am I actually trying to say, and who do I need to say it to out here, in real life? When the movie is about being chosen, ask where you could let yourself be a little more seen tomorrow. When it's about being missed, ask who you've been quietly waiting on to notice you and whether you could reach out first. Let the rehearsal do the job it was built for. Then go and have the real conversation, the one with actual stakes. So tonight, when the lights go off and the projector clicks on, and you're back in a room that doesn't exist, saying the thing you never got to say, don't be embarrassed by it. That theater is not proof that something's wrong with you. It's the one place where you are always the main character, always heard, always handed the ending you wanted. Just don't buy a ticket for every single night. Watch the movie, take the map, then walk back out into the real world where the ending isn't written yet. Because that, in the end, is the only reason it's worth showing up for. If this put words to something you've done quietly every night for years and always felt a little strange about, do me a favor and subscribe. There's someone out there right now who's convinced they're the only one, and this is how they find out they're not. And if you want to know why your brain waits until 2 a.m. to replay your single most embarrassing moment from 10 years ago at full volume, that one's right here.